The word music is derived from the Greek word musike, meaning of the Muses, named after the 9 daughters of Zeus. In this context, music believed to have magic powers. The Greek view of the world and its origin was firmly based on myth. One of the most important philosophers of this time was Pythagoras, who established the idea that numbers provide the means for understanding the universe. According with this theory about numbers, Pythagoras tried to prove that the basic numbers of sound were also those that were the basic numbers of the universe. He established that musical intervals could be expressed through numerical ratios. The doctrine of ethos. Ethos means the state of the soul. Like the planets and the rest of the universe, our soul participates of the same principle. If the music can reflect the universe harmony, it also can affect directly on the soul. Plato and Aristotle affirmed that music contained an essential element that was conducive to the promotion of moral or spiritual harmony, and it could also shape the character of its listener. They used 4 basic modal scales: Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, and Mixolydian.
Gregorian chant is a form of monophonic accompanied sacred song of the Western Roman Catholic Church. Gregorian chant developed mainly in the Western and Central Europe during the 9th and the 10th centuries, the early Middle Ages, with later additions. There are 3 types of Gregorian chant. Syllabic consists in 1 syllable per note. Neumatic consists in syllables per different notes. Melismatic consists in many notes for 1 syllable.
Middle Ages from around 1000 to 1450 developed the construction of great cathedrals and the founding of universities throughout Europe. Cities were centers of art and culture, and within them the townspeople, as a result of the emergent trade activities, developed national literatures, helped state the European languages. Polyphony, the single most important development in the history of Western music, began in the 10th century to the 12th century. It emerged with the Romanesque style. The first example of polyphony was the organum. The analog evolution of architecture and music is evident. During previous centuries, monophonic mass was celebrated in churches and chapels, while in the course of the 12th and 13th centuries, the newly sacked cathedrals resounded with even more complex forms of polyphony.
Outside the cathedrals and monasteries, in the Middle Ages there was a popular literature of songs and dance music that reflected every aspect of medieval life. The main characters were the Goliards. They were ambulant poet-musicians of Europe from the 10th to the middle of the 13th century. Most of them were scholars or ecclesiastics, and they wrote and sang in Latin. Troubadours and trouvers. They were musicians and poets which belonged to the noble classes. Their music was a vernacular monophonic secular song, probably accompanied by instruments. The language of the troubadours was the Occitan, and the language of the trouvers was the Old French. The typical subjects for troubadour songs were the war and the courtly love. The general characteristics of the secular music were its monophonic music, based on ecclesiastic modes. All the compositions were strophic forms, using the same music in different verses or repeating different sections. Simple and clear rhythms, related to dance. The voice is sometimes accompanied with instruments, creating a heterophonic texture.
The 14th century reflects an important development in the technique of all art languages. Painters began to discover the beauties of nature, the adaptiveness of the human form, and the introduction of perspective, instead of the old symbolic and pedagogic paintings. Gothic painting developed from stiff and simple forms into more natural and spatial ones. Only by the 14th century it reached maturity in decoration of retables and miniature illustration of books. Similarly, the music of the French Ars Nova, the term Ars Nova means new art or new technique and was first used in a publication of the same name by Philip de Burgh, shows a greater refinement than the music of the Ars Antique. Old art composers developed the rhythm, meter, harmony, and counterpoint that transformed the art of music. The new advances in the music writing allowed composers the use of new rhythms, combining simple and compound meters, creating complex polyphonic textures. The new harmony introduces third and sixth intervals with the old perfect consonants. Development of new music formal procedures like imitation between voices of different sections, not only depending on the text. New techniques and forms such as isorhythm and the isorhythmic motet became prevalent. It consists of an order of duration or rhythms called talia, karim, which is repeated within a tenor melody called the color. Repetition varied in the number of members from the talia. The complex texture of the isorhythmic motet is one of the best examples of the late medieval rationalism in the Gothic music. We will find the reaction to those practices during the next period, the Renaissance, the agreement between ratio and sensus, between the spheres of reason and the senses, which medieval speculative thought had always defined like opposite categories within music. The composers will be cultivate sacred and profane music as a result of the emerging civil culture. Secular music acquired much of the polyphonic sophistication previously found only in sacred music. The outstanding figure was the French composer-poet Guillaume de Montchaux, Notre Dame Mass.